Three of the four Canadian teams in the Stanley Cup Playoffs have hit the ice so far. How do we think they have fared? Hey everyone, welcome into the Off the Post Playoff Edition. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Toronto Sun Sports columnist Steve Simmons and Canucks reporter for the Vancouver Sun and the Province, Patrick Johnston. And guys, what a weekend of first-round action it was. And as we record this, the Oilers are the only Canadian team that has yet to play, so we'll talk about them later in the week. But we got to start in Vancouver, where Rogers Arena was absolutely rocking. Patrick, you were there to watch the Canucks show some resilience and take game 1 4-2 over Nashville. What were your biggest takeaways from the game?
Well, I mean, obviously the win off the top and the way the Canucks stuck with it, came back, however you want to phrase it, getting big goals in the third period, taking a home win for the first time in 9 years. And then also just the sort of the catharsis of all of it for the fans, the having watched so much bad hockey over such a long time. You know, the last time that we saw hockey in this town, the Canucks were still good. And then it's been a long time in the wilderness, obviously a few little moments here and there, but 9 years is a long time between home games, and the fans loved it. The fans were into it, and the players were blown away by what they experienced. It was notable post-game how emotional they were feeling about all of it between the win and the experience itself.
The first star of the weekend were the fans in Vancouver and Winnipeg. My God, what I wanted to be in both places. I mean, sitting at home, you could feel it, you could hear it, you could experience it. But I really wanted to be there because I've been in Vancouver for playoff games and I've been in Winnipeg for playoff games, and I've never really felt that before. So I think that all the time away and the fact that these teams are pretty good had the fans really going. I want to really compliment the Vancouver Canucks last night. That's a playoff game. I mean, sometimes I don't think the Winnipeg-Colorado game was a playoff game. The Vancouver-Nashville game was a playoff game. There wasn't a lot of chances. There wasn't a lot of open ice. There wasn't a lot of anything going on except two teams that are really well coached, really playing smart hockey, and they're not leaving a lot. It's almost like playing chess in a way. And so the tension is really there. What's going to happen? When is it going to happen? And I'm going to give the Canucks, and in particular Rick Tocchet, just huge kudos for last night, for Sunday night, because when you watch teams protecting leads in today's NHL, it's a really hard thing to do. It's really changed from what it used to be. And most teams don't do it particularly well. I thought the Canucks smothered the final minutes of that game, and they have absolutely perfected the three-quarter ice dump. Like, it's not icing. You send it down it's almost like curling. You send it down as far as you can, and then you hope it works. And most teams can't do it. Most teams ice the puck. Most teams go for the open nets. The Canucks' discipline last night, hats off to them. Very impressive.
Steve's point, a great point about the tactical aspect of it, the way the coaches work the game. I mean, the first half of the game, we saw a masterclass by the Predators in basically messing up with what the Canucks' instincts were. You know, not a lot of actually physical engagement, playing for position, being ready to turn the puck the other way. You know, the Canucks missed the net 9 times in the first period. There's a reason why the Predators looked so good in the first period, because they kept getting the puck off the Canucks because the Canucks were giving it to them. And they were ready to go, and they were ready to fly up the ice. And then we saw as the game progressed, the Canucks adapt and change the way. I'm talking getting the guys back into what they wanted, playing the puck in deep. As Steve said, these smart dumps, no matter where they were on the ice, getting in, getting pressure. You look at those 2 goals, the tying goal and then the winning goal, were all about getting the puck, turning the defenseman around, making things happen, making them make mistakes, and then quickly being ready to strike.
And hockey players do not do that naturally. That's something that's taught to them. And I'm sure with the weeks that Tocchet knew they've been in the playoffs for weeks. They have been working on this. They had to have been working on this either in film sessions, in room sessions, or on the ice, because you don't do that naturally.
No, he's been a great teacher, absolutely.
Well, we go from one fan base in Vancouver to another one in Toronto, Steve, that is starting to feel like it's deja vu all over again, as the Maple Leafs had a pretty disheartening 5-1 loss to the Bruins in Game 1. Game 2 set to go on Monday night. Still waiting to see, of course, some potential injury news with regards to William Nylander, Steve. But whether he's in or he's out, do you have any sense of how the rest of the series is going to go?
Well, 2013, they played the Bruins, and Game 1 looked like men versus boys. Really different Leafs team than we have now. And I thought this is going to be a bad series. And in Game 2, the Leafs came back and won, and they went 7 games, and they should have won the series leading, with 10 minutes to go in Game 7. Then you go to playing Boston a couple years after that. different, more closer to this Leafs team, and they got whipped in game one, and you thought, oh my God, men versus boys, it's not going to happen. Game one, Tampa, last year, whipped by the Stanley Cup champion or two-time Stanley Cup champion Lightning. Men versus boys, this is going to happen again. They won the series. So the one thing I've learned in 40-some years of doing this is every playoff game has its own life. One does not attach to the other. There is no such thing as momentum unless you're up 3-0. So do I think they're in trouble? They're close to being in trouble. Do I know they're in trouble? No. I've seen too many of these one-game blowout, here's what happens in game two, inch your way back into the season. And I remember thinking in 2013 with a really different Leafs team, Randy Carlyle was the greatest coaching he's ever done in his life, even winning the Stanley Cup, bringing the Leafs back in that series. He coached brilliantly. And that's what you need in these kind of circumstances. You need great play, but you really need great preparation and game plan.
That's the real test here. Absolutely. That was my main thought coming out of this was you've looked at this one game and nothing worked. You've got to figure out a new thing. You're going in the new game, fresh slate, try something different. We can't discount the absence of William Nylander. I mean, that is such an example of how important your star players are. And a guy like that who's done so many things for this team for so long and not having in the lineup, you're going to have to adjust. If he's in the lineup, great. But if he's not, what you did on Saturday wasn't enough. And like Steve said, it is a new slate, but you're going to have to figure something different. And it's a big test now for Sheldon Keefe.
Well, the plan was with Matthews centering one line, Marner on a second line, and Nylander on a third line, they were going to try the old Pittsburgh thing from the two Stanley Cup teams where you put Phil Kessel on the third line and let him score crazy against their third liners. And they thought Nylander would be sort of the Kessel of this team. Well, when he's out, your third line has no scoring, and so maybe you have to move Marner back with Matthews. Maybe you have to move Domi back to third line center. Maybe you have to adjust. And as I said earlier, and Patrick made the point about the Vancouver series, this is when coaches really earn their money. This is between games of playoff series. What do you do? How do you adjust? And we've seen great ones over the years who really knew. Joel Quenneville was fantastic at this. Bob Johnston in the Calgary years that covered the Flames was fantastic at this. Roger Nielsen was fantastic at this. We don't know if Sheldon Keefe is fantastic at this because he hasn't really exhibited that kind of brilliance in his time in Toronto. He's had a great record. His record, I think, is the best in hockey. But his record in the playoffs still, tests to be time.
All right, guys, lastly, a thought on the Jets. Patrick, we'll start with you. It was like a hockey game from the 1980s playoffs the other night, a 7-6 final on Sunday evening. Should we expect more of the same, or do you think these two teams saw that and thought, no more of this, especially the coaches?
Well, obviously saw a lot. Yeah, especially the coaches. Obviously, we've seen a lot of this Avalanche team here. I've seen a lot of them over the last few years. And that high-paced, high-octane hockey is what they want to be. Now, they won't have been happy, obviously, giving up 7 goals, but the pace is what they want. I would expect that's what's going to happen. The Jets were ready blow for blow. Full credit to them. Again, Rick Bowness, he won't be happy giving up 5 goals. I don't think Connor Hellebuck will be happy giving up 5 goals. That part of the game was so unexpected. That said, I think this game is going to be a fast series. I mean, the Jets are big and fast and play hard. So are the Avalanche. I don't think we'll see another 7-5 game, but I wouldn't be surprised to see if we have a bunch more goals in the next.
Welcome back to the Smythe division, which I covered.
Yeah, exactly.
Flames Oilers was the greatest hockey you could watch in the 80s, and Grant Fuhr was the guy who made it 7-6 because he wouldn't let 7th one in. Well, Connor Hellebuck last night was a little bit of Grant Fuhr in doing what he does, and he's had the best season of any goalie in the NHL. He's going to win the Vezina Trophy. And they got 6 goals on the best goalie in the NHL. If you get 6 goals on the best goalie in the NHL, you should win. That's how it's supposed to work. In this case, Colorado's going to be shaking their heads today and wondering, why didn't Joe Sakic get another goalie at the deadline? Like, why didn't he find somebody who, was breathing? Because the players by the end of the game were actually looking at Georgiev and thinking, what are you doing?
I heard someone say they got playoff Patrick Lalime out there. It wasn't quite what they wanted. It was. They need a big performance in goal. They'll figure a way out of this.
They just need a guy to be
will they figure it out
to be average. They could get Jake Allen out of the studio on Sportsnet and put him in goal. He can be average.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, quite a wild start to that series, and the other series, very interesting as well. We'll talk about it later in the week on another edition of Off the Post. For Steve Simmons, Patrick Johnston, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.